Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Is the coronavirus a scam-demic? Now, at the start, I want to say where I am sitting right now and what I have experienced. I'm just reading this off of this paper because I did make a couple of notes before the show. As it is now, before this interview that I'm going to be doing with you today, I believe in wearing masks during a pandemic. I think that if people sneeze and cough, it does help not spread germs. I don't like to wear masks. I really don't like wearing a mask, but I think during this time we need to. That's my stance right now. Do we need to do social distancing? I think it's a smart thing to do while we are having this rapidly and easily spread flu going around that is deadly. Do we need to wash hands? Yes, I am in very, very pro keeping clean, washing your hands. You go outside, you don't know what you've touched that someone else has touched. And this, again, is a very, very, I'm forgetting my English, midabek. How do you say that, technician? Midabek what? It transmits very easily. I forget the English word. And sterilizing things. I mean, I go to the extreme because I have my elderly parents living with me. And every time we go food shopping, first of all, I try to minimize it to once every 2 weeks. I buy a lot so we don't have to go often. And everything that comes in the bags, it stays at the front door until it is sterilized. We take one of those antibacterial rags that you can throw away, and every item that comes into the house is sterilized because I'm afraid for my parents because it's such a contagious, that was the word I'm looking for, contagious disease or flu. And so, yes, this is where I stand now. At the end of this interview, I don't know where I'll be. I like to learn. And for some people say, Tamar, but you're saying all of these things and now you're saying the opposite. Just think of it as someone who is open-minded and can learn and can change their opinions based on the information that they have. So it's going to be a very interesting interview that we're going to do. Is it a scam-demic? Do lockdowns work? Do masks work? Do social distancing work? Is there a better way to fight and treat COVID-19 and other flus? We're going to find out on this show. Don't go anywhere.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
You're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here on Israel News Talk Radio. And the question that we're asking today, is the coronavirus a scam-demic? Now, you all know that I take this virus very seriously. I have elderly parents who live in my home. I sterilize everything that comes into the house because this is such a contagious flu. And it is a deadly flu, like other flus can be very deadly as well. And but we're seeing not just flus and not just elderly people and people with pre-existing conditions dying from this, but we're also seeing economies fall. We're seeing the financial crisis that is taking place all over the world because of these lockdowns. And so the questions I'm going to be asking on the show today, are these lockdowns really necessary? Do we need to wear masks? Do we need social distancing? I believe that we do need masks. I don't like them, but I think that we need to we're a place when we're in a pandemic, when there is such a contagious virus going around. I don't like masks, but I think that we're forced to do it. I may change my mind after the show. I don't know. I'm going to invite you as well, the listener, to call in with your questions and ask our guest what he thinks about these things. But we're going to be exploring also on the show if there are better cures and preventive medicine that we're not using today, that governments are just, for whatever reason, grinding their feet into the floor and not wanting to move. So is there a better way to fight and treat the COVID-19 and even other flus that we have? Our guest is going to be talking about oxygen-ozone therapy. And he says it's a success for COVID-19 in Italy, saying that 94% of non-intubated people and 73% of intubated patients rapidly recover. By comparison, only 20% of New York City's intubated patients recover at all. So he's going to be talking about oxygen-ozone therapy and other things as well, showing the success of it and why governments don't do it. We don't know. We'll find out more about it. Our guest is Professor Pinchas Mandel. He's the chairman and chief scientist of the Family of Israel Foundation, who has over 30 years of continuous experience in advanced engineering and physics research. He was the head of research and development at Quantum Medical Center in Tel Aviv for 15 years, involving the fields of quantum medicine, orthomolecular medicine, medical ozone, biophotonic therapy, and magnetic resonance therapy. We're going to find out what all this is during the show. For his full CV, you can visit his website at www.familyofisrael.org. Welcome to the show, Professor Pinchas Mandel.
Your show.
All right, so we have a pandemic going around, and it is killing tens of thousands of people, if not more. I don't know what the stats are. Maybe it's over hundreds of thousands now. I don't know. And we are seeing other doctors. There's Dr. Zev Zelenko, I believe his name is, who's saying to use hydrochloroquine, right? And he's saying that this will help. Hydroxychloroquine. He's saying that this will help. And you are saying that also something that is working, and you're saying it's proven to work, is called oxygen-ozone therapy. So let's start with that. What exactly is that? Explain it to our listeners.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with that. We're using the two items, both oxygen and light, okay, which without, we agree, there would be no life on Earth, okay, as a treatment in the area of quantum medicine. Ozone is a gas that's 3 molecules of oxygen, as opposed to oxygen, which is O2. So in the upper atmosphere, when UVC hits it, it becomes ozone, O3, but it could also be made by electrical discharges of machines that make medical ozone, which uses medical oxygen, okay, not air, okay? So we don't have any of the nitrous oxides there. So ozone therapy is a therapy. It was discovered 200 years ago by a gentleman named Friedrich Schonbein, a German scientist. So that's how far back. But in the medical literature, even last 100 years, there are tens of thousands of peer-reviewed journal articles on the power of ozone as a therapy. There are many different treatment protocols that you can do with medical ozone, where you're doing it on the blood, or many other protocols. It's even used in aesthetics because collagen and elastin is reproduced, so they do it subcutaneously under the skin. But there's many effects for ozone, and one of the hallmark of the treatments is that it's bactericidal and virucidal, okay? It destroys any pathogen or virus, okay? And throughout evolution, it's never, viruses or bacteria, neither one have become resistant to destruction when exposed to ozone. And also UVC, ultraviolet UVC, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But the focus of what we're talking about, ozone as a treatment, these studies that are colleagues of ours in Italy, which was very hard hit with the corona, especially the elderly, and also in cities that also have a lot of air pollution. Itself, so it was a very bad mixture. And they used ozone, the government. They treated 800 patients in 26 hospitals with a very high success rate, as you stated in the beginning. And we in Israel, just to tell the public, and they should be happy, and I'm proud that the Ministry of Health here in Israel, even though it took many years of bureaucracy to overcome and get regulatory status for these treatments, but in Israel, these treatments, both ozone and biophotonic therapy, which is exposure of a small quantity of blood to UVC, ultraviolet, are approved here in Israel, and we even have received a third-party pay code from the Ministry of Defense. That was no easy task. It took about a year, and we treated vets. We also treated patients in hospitals when we were called into ICU wards of patients who were dying of septic shock and were given hours or days to live. Fortunately, our statistics was 75% that we succeeded in preventing the untimely death of people who were basically given up for dead from an infection. Now, what's beautiful about these treatments is that it acts as an auto vaccine, and I know a lot of people are, very terrified, and all the information and conspiracies, all the things going about that the public is hearing about vaccines. Okay, but we'll because we're talking about vaccines, but unless you're giving a safe, viable, proven alternative, people are in a panic. So the good news from the Jews and also for the Jews, and this is, Israel will be a light into the nations. We have some bureaucrats that are dragging their feet here too, as every country in the world. It seems to be a lockstep, and everyone's getting marching orders from a central location. So we're not going to get into all the theories, conspiracies, and all that, just talking the facts. This is good news. This treatment acts as an auto vaccine, because what is theoretically a vaccine supposed to do in the human body without all the side effects? Okay, this treatment first is safer than crossing the street, is to deactivate the pathogen, whatever it may be called. It's in the blood, okay, as well, and other fluids. And when it is destroyed by the ozone, in contact with the ozone, it destroys the envelope of the virus, okay, or bacteria, okay, also spores and fungus and all sorts of other organisms that are disrupted by ozone, okay, because it's a very unstable molecule, okay, so it's very reactive. And as soon as that happens and that patient's blood is returned to him after it's been exposed to ozone, the body now recognizes the surface antigens on the virus or the bacteria, whatever the pathogen it may be, specific to the actual patient. That's, not something, like a vaccine, which they hope will work for this, but may or may not. And, it also mutates. So that opens up another Pandora's box. But specifically with this year, it becomes an auto vaccine. And then the body recognizes the surface antigen, it makes an immune response that is specific to that pathogen. So this is a very powerful tool to add to the arsenal of doctors who my heart goes out to all the healthcare workers and doctors and nurses and other healthcare staff that are on the front lines. By the way, in Israel, 3,000 of them have gotten they're tested positive for corona. This is disastrous for any healthcare system, especially when Israel there's only about 20,000 doctors. Okay, and so we need also tools to be able to. The doctors will know that they can not only treat effectively people that are exhibiting the difficult symptoms of corona, and it's no joke, okay, it's a flu-like, because corona is a family of hundreds of viruses, okay? This one is particularly virulent, has specific symptoms that can make like cytokine storm, where the immune system overreacts and just kills the patient, it goes atomic. Or the thrombosis, where the platelets clump, okay? The blood gets thicker, the viscosity. These treatments prevent ozone and biophotonic. They prevent platelet clumping, which causes the blood to be viscous and can cause stroke and heart attack and all kinds of other problems. Because when it gets to the lungs, the blood has to go single file. So you can understand if the pipes are very small and it's very sticky, the blood, it will be hard to get oxygenated in the lungs, therefore the respiratory distress.
Okay, hold it right there, okay? Because we have to take a break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about this oxygen-ozone therapy, ultraviolet light, how it helps as well. And God forbid you know somebody, you want to check out the website of our guest. I'll be giving out all the information when we get back. We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with Love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with Love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
Modesty at the beach? It isn't just about body image. It's about feeling good. Modest swimsuits, so we don't get burned by the sun.
So we won't get ogled by strangers.
So we'll feel free to express ourselves without the need to expose ourselves.
Let Marcy Modest help you to cover up what you want, how you want.
Made in Israel.
Visit marcymodest.com. That's MARSEA modest.com.
And get a 10% discount on your first purchase.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar, Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're asking about what we are experiencing today with the lockdowns, the masks, the social distancing, all of the things being put on the population. Is this a scam-demic? Is this really a terribly deadly flu that we have to go to all of these extremes in order to keep under control? Now, I'm not saying this lightly. I do believe that there is a terrible, deadly virus going on. I am all in favor of wearing masks. I'm in favor of social distancing. I'm in favor of doing preventive medicine and sterilizing things, washing your hands when you come into your home. However, our guest is saying that the coronavirus doesn't have to be as deadly as we are seeing happening, that there are better ways to fight and treat COVID-19 and other deadly flus that come our way. And our guest is Professor Pinchas Mandel. He's the chairman and chief scientist of the Family of Israel Foundation. And he's here answering our questions. If you have any questions, if you'd like to come on the air and ask a question to our guest, feel free to do so. We are live if you're listening on Sunday afternoon between 4 to 5 p.m. The numbers are on the top of our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. You'll find the phone numbers there, and feel free to call into the show. So, Professor Pinchas Mandel, when we were talking in the first segment, you were saying that oxygen-ozone therapy is very, very good and has been a success in Italy. You said 94% of non-intubated patients who had corona recovered using this therapy, and 73% of intubated patients also rapidly recovered by using oxygen-ozone therapy. You also talk about ultraviolet light being used as therapy as well. We'll wait for that for a moment. But again, if you can, in just one or two sentences, explain again what oxygen-ozone therapy is.
Okay, then we'll focus on the actual protocol that was used in Italy, which is what we call major autohemotherapy. That's when we extract a small quantity of a patient's blood, about a pint, okay? We're talking to the American population. Usually never more than 200 cc, okay, we're talking in cc's. And we add medical ozone that's been made from medical oxygen. We're basically taking O2, medical oxygen, putting it through, it's a gas, as you know, is going through a machine which is converting it to precise measured quantities of ozone, which acts as a medical drug, actually, okay? Has many mechanisms of action, but we won't get into that yet. You can read that at the website in grueling detail, including all the peer-reviewed journals. There's many.
Okay.
But basically, essentially explain the treatment and the protocol that they did in Italy. They take a measured quantity, like you're donating a pint of blood, but you get your blood back after that patient's blood has been exposed and given the dose of ozone that's mixed into the blood. They roll the bottle until blood becomes crimson, saturated with the oxygen, and then they take the vacuum out. They let the blood return to the patient just as it came out. Okay, that's the treatment itself. So it does a number of things. It acts as an auto vaccine because it's destroying the pathogen in question. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Okay, it's doesn't care. It's ambivalent to what the name of the pathogen is. Okay, it also increases the immune system, okay, it does immune modulation, okay, because in the case of cytokine storm, let's say someone's on a respirator and they're before death, it down modulates the immune system. Cytokine storm is when the immune system is overreacting and then kills the whole body, okay, and then there's organ failure, okay, so ozone will do that. It also expands all 100,000 kilometers or miles, 65,000 miles of blood vessels. It also increases the oxygen because all these patients are apoxic, meaning they're very low on oxygen levels, and that makes them very nervous. So when they get too low, they want to put them on a respirator. But that, because it's under pressure, at the end it blows out the lungs. And anyone knows about respirators is that when you put a patient on a respirator, you just increase by 70% his chance for getting a hospital-acquired infection to add to his misery. Okay, so that's why they're very difficult. This is not a joke. There is corona. Those people say it doesn't exist. That's not true. It's a flu. It could be certain, even though that 99.8% of healthy people, most of them don't even feel the symptoms. So, to take such an extreme reaction of locking down countries and all the other hysterics that are going around with that really doesn't make sense, because it's only a minority of people that are really get in trouble and whose lives are threatened. Therefore, these treatments, okay, which we combine, they did use just ozone, but we've been using the protocol for 30 years where it's a biox. It's a combination of both exposure of a patient's blood. As we're taking the blood out, this we're doing for ozone, it goes through a quartz cuvette that the blood is exposed to the UVC as it passes through that machine, and the blood is photochemical, like film. So it absorbs these photons. We are light bodies, but we can get on that a little later. But this combination therapy, now they're each monotherapies can give it alone, and they each have all unique qualities that are unique to it only. The combination, we found for 30 years of experience, is much quicker and better clinical results, especially when someone is facing death. Sometimes only hours they're given by the professionals and the experts. Well, we need to give the body all the tools it needs to first put the brakes on, okay, with the cytokine storm and other overreactions of the immune system, and then, treat the root cause of the problem and pull them out of, danger. And that's what we do. We've done it for 30 years routinely in private clinics.
And how long does it take? How long does this treatment take?
About a half an hour.
So you're saying that if a COVID patient goes in who's already on a respirator, can get treated with this oxygen-ozone therapy and the ultraviolet light within half an hour, that's all it takes, and then after that he'll start to recover?
Yes, and it depends on the severity of the patient. Okay, everyone is unique and comes with their own medical profile, okay, including other diseases that they have, chronic illnesses, okay, so each one is individual, but usually someone who's on a respirator, it would require, and if we're using both biophotonic and ozone together, it would take at least 3 to 5 treatments, which we could do during the same, and we can do one every day. If they're in real clinical condition, even every 12 hours, but that's on a case-by-case basis. And, the doctors look at their medical charts and all the different parameters, because there's a lot of things going on.
Okay. Are there any side effects?
That's that's a great question. These treatments are literally safer than crossing the street if you follow the proper medical protocols. Literally safer than crossing the street. It's oxygen. Without oxygen we can't live, and without light there is no life.
And how much does the treatment cost?
Talk about quantum medicine, because to explain the mechanism of action, we would need to go to quantum physics and quantum mechanics.
How much does the treatment cost? I'm sure our listeners are asking.
Our colleagues in the United States charge between $250 and $300.
That's it.
That's it. And here in Israel, where we've been doing this for 15 years, there's doctors that just do ozone. We were the only ones that did both ozone and biophotonic together as a protocol. But till this very moment, there are doctors doing it here in private clinics. The problem is someone who's in septic shock or on a respirator or in serious condition that's in the hospital cannot come to a private clinic. Therefore, we have to come to them.
And the hospitals let you do this? Do they let you in?
What's that?
Do hospitals in Israel let you in to treat a patient?
That's a very good question. We started first in February when there were only 5 people that died from corona, and every life is precious to us. That was when the first minister of health was there, and they didn't respond, or they did respond, but all kinds of nonsense. Then the new minister, there was the government, the new government, and it was a new minister who knows us. We were his guests many times in the Knesset. It also fell through the bureaucratic chairs, through the cracks, as we say. A lot of agendas, egos, so many things going on, but the interest of the public is definitely not being served. The poor doctors on the front line, they're also suffering. Okay, they're getting also. Now, there's interesting about the tools we use. The first and most important is preventative. Okay, so for that, there's a product called the Aura Air. It's a company that was a Kickstart in 2017.
You know what? Let's go. Let's just wait for. We're almost at the end of this segment.
And oxygen.
Okay, wait a second. We'll get to the preventive medicine. You can talk about that in the next segment because we only have another minute until we end this segment here. So basically, I want to ask again, do the hospitals in Israel at least let you in to treat patients?
Okay. The legal answer is when a patient a family is told to depart from the family because they're going to die, then they have the legal right to bring even a witch doctor, as long as he has a license to practice medicine by the Ministry of Health and medical liability insurance, they have to allow him in. Okay, that is the right of the patient. So we've offered from the beginning to give free, no charge, no agendas, and to train doctors even, and we've spent our foundation tens of thousands on equipment and disposable treatment kits. Okay, and from the beginning we went to the CEOs of hospitals who know us for years. These are also hospitals where our equipment was in their ICU wards and saved many lives.
10 seconds. We have to finish, yeah.
And they because they're so busy with clinical trials with Big Pharma, they say, we don't have enough patients to share with you, and it would be a conflict of interest. You understand? So there's a lot of agendas, too many for me to figure out who's against who.
So sometimes they let you in and sometimes they don't.
Well, before Corona, we routinely when we were invited to hospitals to come in by the head of the ward, we did, and we treated. People can see at the website a patient given up for dead that we treated. Okay?
All right. Okay. We have to take a break right now. Sorry to interrupt. We'll be right back, everybody. Feel free to call in with any questions.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about the coronavirus. Is it a scam-demic? Is the government scaring us too much? Is the information that they're giving the population, the public, true or not? Is there a better way to fight and treat COVID-19 and even other flus that can be deadly? Our guest is Professor Pinchas Mandel. He is the chairman and chief scientist of the Family of Israel Foundation, and he is does physics research, advanced engineering, etc., etc. You can go to his website at www.familyofisrael.org, and he is saying that there have been proven tests and statistics taken. For instance, Italy, which was hit very hard by COVID-19, they were saying that oxygen-ozone therapy and ultraviolet light was a success for COVID-19 patients. 94% of non-intubated patients recovered after getting this treatment, and 73% of intubated patients rapidly recovered. So with all of that, I want to ask you now, we don't want to get to that point where we've already caught the virus. We know and we concur that it is a very contagious virus. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes. It
yes.
is
Okay.
Virus.
Okay.
Yes.
And we want to keep away.
Like any flu.
Okay.
Similar.
So we want to know in like 2 minutes, give us how we can help prevent getting the virus in the first place.
Okay. Well, first is your personal hygiene, which we're always for that. Okay. Cleanliness is next to God. It's also a smart thing to do. That's science, real science. And also on the way you eat, the supplements. People need to take between 6 to 10 grams spread out over a day of vitamin C, also at least 10,000 units of vitamin D and zinc, okay, which interferes with how it enters cells, the virus.
How much of D and zinc? How much do we need of D and zinc?
The zinc at least is a maintenance levels. Also, if they did a blood test, they'll see if they're even low on zinc. So they may want to take, 75 or 100 milligrams of zinc at the beginning to top off. But a maintenance dose, 50 milligrams is good. Of course, if a person is sick, they can take that, go a little higher. But that, on a case-by-case basis. These are things that drink plenty of water, don't stress, which is kind of hard with them screaming 24/7 pandemic. It kind of, stress is the biggest killer. So that there's many cofactors, going on besides financial and otherwise. Now, as far as preventative and people gathering, there's a device called Aura Air. And this is, we wanted to do this years ago, but, it's hard to do everything at once. This company has a device that uses UVC, that uses an ionizer that also has to do with oxygen, and HEPA filters with copper fiber, which also destroys pathogens. And this device is also paired to an app in every cell phone, which tells you the quality of air, both inside and outdoors, of the air you're breathing. This is a first. It's a game changer. And it's been tested on COVID-19 at Tel HaShomer Hospital, which is one of the top 10, was considered one of the top 10 hospitals in the world. And to kill COVID. So it takes care of that, and all other pathogens and volatile organic chemicals, because air indoors is 5 times more polluted than outdoor airs. So just as a general rule, we want to purify your indoor air, especially now people are spending more time indoors because of these lockdowns. Now, as far as gathering, we have devices that are larger and take care of larger spaces. We're coming out with a mini, and we're also developing one that you wear on your body, which gives you a 3-meter bubble space around you, and your app at all times tells you know what the quality of air you're breathing at all times. So this is a great preventative. Now, if someone does get sick, and remember the statistics from CDC telling us that 99.8%, pass through this with no problem, like a flu, because seasonal flu kills 3 million a year. I don't see them shutting down countries for that. So they took things too much out of perspective, and there was no deep thought going into this before governments and politicians decide to take these draconian measures. But we want to calm people in that. There's a lot to do to prevent it. Having a strong immune system, your vitamin D, better to get it from light. But if they're keeping you indoors, well, that will make it difficult. So you're going to have to supplement on vitamin D.
How much vitamin D?
Most people are very low, and they should be taking at least 10,000, if not 20, depending on tests. People can do tests to find out their levels.
10,000 to 20,000 what? Milligrams?
Units. I use units.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Okay, and what was the name of the filter and the app that you were talking about?
It's called Aura Air. They can see this at our website because we're featuring the product. We partner with them to provide all houses of worship and other spaces and their members because we want to be community-based, because we know that if we wait on governments and politicians, a lot of people are going to die.
And what's the name of the app?
The app that they download, it's a free app, but they need the device. It's called Aura Air.
Okay, so they go together. All right.
You'll see it at the familyofisrael.org website. It's featured on the homepage.
Okay.
You read all about it, and they have their own website as well.
What about hydroxychloroquine?
Okay, this is a drug that's been known for over 70 years. I personally, when I lived in Africa and we're testing out all these treatments in the jungles of Africa with a generator and people lined up 100 meters in a row, I lost my train of thought.
I'm actually asking about hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine, yeah, with malaria, which does still to this day kill many. So I know it personally. It helped me when I didn't have these other ozone and biophotonic therapy, but it took me about a week to get back on my feet. The next time that I was in Africa, years later, again, I got malaria, but this time I had the equipment. And within hours, I was back on my feet and feeling almost new. The next day, I was good as new.
So you're saying that works, that hydroxychloroquine works. Can you use it in tandem?
It has a good safety profile. I'm all for having many weapons in the arsenal for doctors, but if someone that's in a septic shock and he has cytokine storm, that won't help you. They will die.
It's too late already, right? Can you use them together in tandem with your treatment?
No counterindication with that. The only counterindication would be sulfa drugs, which we don't use. It would be useless anyways because it's a virus, not a bacteria. So antibiotics, in that case. There is azithromycin, which is antibiotics good for lungs. Now, we understand there's also co-infections that are bacterial. Because remember, viruses are dead, okay? They give it so much intelligence, okay? It knows when it's night. It knows when you take your mask off to eat. All these things that don't make any sense. Anyone half a brain would just know this, okay, if you think, okay? So, there's a lot of nonsense being propagated, and that isn't backed by any science. If anyone could bring me science and show me peer-reviewed journal articles backing that, those statements, very bold ones, that are putting countries into lockdown and destroying lives, literally, financially, emotionally, spiritually, this madness needs to be stopped. So we need to tell here there's tools to prevent it, both in your air, also your body, get your body, in shape and have a strong immune system, so that even higher than the 99.8% who get it, and they go through it, okay, and they come out unscathed. Also, these treatments, someone who did pass through this, there's a lot of side effects that could go on for many months. We don't even know, years, because this is new. But there are many effects that are because of the vascular damage, okay, to the brain, other parts of the body, so it can affect memory. So these therapies can also undo the damage done by the virus when they suffered. So there's, many points here on as far as prevention, and also if someone was through it, well, they would still need to get these treatments to also, make sure that there was no permanent damage done.
All right. So we only have another minute left to the show. So I just want to do a very quick review. You're saying that in your opinion, washing your hands and keeping good hygiene is important. Masks, in your opinion, not effective.
Not effective, and people want to wear it. Surgeons in surgery, after 2 hours, their oxygen desaturates.
I know, but what if somebody sneezes and they get it all over you? Isn't that how people regularly get the flu also? By touching things, people wipe their noses and then somebody touches something and they rub their eye and it gets into them? I mean, don't masks help?
The science behind proving that is very shaky at best. And, if someone feels comfortable with a mask, certainly you don't want someone sneezing on your food or in your face or coughing in your face. But the masks do not stop the drop. Now, this is a very simple test, even for someone with very low intelligence. Take room spray, okay? It's about the same particle size as the...
Okay, we don't have time, unfortunately. So mask, you're saying you don't rely on masks. You're saying you don't rely on masks.
If you could do that test, it didn't protect you.
Okay, all right. So you're saying masks don't really protect you that well. So, okay. Social distancing, yes or no?
This is not my opinion. And don't shoot the messenger. The peer review journal articles on randomized control trials speak for themselves.
Okay, lockdowns, you're for or against lockdowns?
Against, they also, again, have not proven throughout history this has never happened.
But it has brought down the amount of people every day who are getting it. We were at 8,000, 9,000 people a day, and now we're down to 3,000 people a day.
Because the inventor, first of all, the PCR test should never be used for diagnostics. If he was alive today, he died last year.
Okay.
Before COVID,
we have to.
Same thing, but it's 8% false positive, so as high as. So that's also
all right. Let me just give people out your website. Everybody, take care of yourself. You're asking what we can do. Take care of yourself. Be healthy. You can go to his website. Again, his website is www.familyofisrael.org. Thank you very much, Professor Pinchas Mandel. I wish we had more time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's very hopeful information.
Stay well, stay safe.
Familyofisrael.org, everybody. Go there and find out more.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.